Venezuela is falling apart. The country on the northern tip of South America, famous for oil, Salto Angel, Hugo Chavez, Call of Duty ghosts, world's highest crime rate, and finally the recent food crisis. Hi, it's Youngna. I'm a musician and former journalist from Seoul, South Korea. It's been more than 3 years since the overall shortages among the Venezuelan people started getting noticeable on a global scale.
Long queues outside supermarkets are an all too common sight in Caracas these days. People wait for 1, 2, or even 3 hours to buy basic foodstuffs, which are in short supply in Venezuela.
I'm queuing to buy toilet paper, flour, butter, whatever there is in the shop.
Una imagen que no es nueva. La escasez y el cansancio por las largas colas parece haber incrementado la frustración de los compradores desesperados por llevar alimentos a su hogar.
It was 2005 that all this big trend originated, with 5% of goods reported to be unavailable, and the scarcity rate kept increasing as 24% in January 2007. Then it started dropping a little from 16% in May 2008, but went back to 15% in January 2012. And in February 2014, the country reached the highest inflation in the world, with a record-breaking 28% of goods not being supplied. Since then, it's been a straight-up hellhole for the people. The photos of empty shelves flooded in on social media, with people lining up for hours every day just to get some food from the supermarkets. A survey found that nearly 3/4 of the population lost 19 pounds in the year 2016. President Nicolas Maduro even told the people to start growing their own food. You know, like the agricultural revolution or the Martian. At least Matt Damon had the fucking technology. These people are even dumpster diving just to physiologically get by.
Each day at dusk, the unemployed converge on this sidewalk trash heap in downtown Caracas, picking through rotten fruit and vegetables tossed out by nearby shops.
I'm doing this due to the need we are facing in our country. Never, not ever, was this seen before.
Many people, especially in the free market-based Western world, view this as a contemporary evidence for the essential flaw of leftism or socialism. But we all love Bernie Sanders, right? Alright?
Okay, that's pretty good.
Even I do, and I'm not even American. I don't have to worry about crazy healthcare costs like that. But then we're all gonna die from North Korean missiles.
Oh, Jesus.
So from a more deeper perspective, if we're gonna die one way or another, let's find out what exactly caused the enormous problem. And we're met with one term: price control. During the presidency of the late Hugo Chavez from 1998 to 2013, the Venezuelan government had one goal when it came to economic policies, and that was independence. The country suffered major economic and political crises for 2 decades before Chavez, mainly because of the collapse of oil prices in the mid-80s.
What happens in the Commerce Department will be of special interest to the people of Alaska. Hard times there.
10 years ago this summer, the Alaska pipeline began pumping oil from Prudhoe Bay, and that started money pumping into the state's economy. Alaska went on a spending spree. The Alaska unemployment rate is 11%, but that doesn't tell the story. 23,000 workers and their families have left the state since 1985.
Its big public spending was heavily relying on its short-term oil income, and the series of failures in all parts of the society led to multiple riots and coups, one of which was led by Chavez in 1992. I was born that year. He was sick of the United States and the world order it created, which we now call neoliberalism or capitalism. So he wanted to become a president of an independent South America as a whole, quote, resisting against American imperialism and launching a lot of welfare packages for the poor, including free education, free basic foods, free healthcare, free housing, free land distribution, etc. Free everything based on, once again, oil income. It was called the Bolivarian Mission, and it was great. The poverty rate actually dropped by almost 20% over the decade, but at the same time, Venezuela's inflation problem kept growing since 2003 when Chavez announced the currency peg of the Venezuelan bolivars to the US dollar because, fuck America. And also the fixation of consumer product prices, including medicines and basic foods like eggs, sugar, and cheese. He was so mad about the private sector, he basically declared war against businessmen who had already been on strike for months by making the prices solely determined by the government.
Venezuela remains a country sharply divided. Many people would like to see the left-wing president Hugo Chavez removed from power. They accuse him of failing to deliver on promises to bring economic prosperity and end widespread corruption. Chavez, speaking a few hours earlier during a visit to Argentina, remained defiant. Despite the opposition, Chavez retains the loyalty of millions of other Venezuelans, often from the country's full majority. They say he's really been undermined by big businesses, and others opposed to his efforts to empower the poor.
The result of the strict price controls was devastating, not just for the businesses, but also for the poor. In 2010, consumer prices in the country increased by 27%, while the average rise in the continent was 6%, and the average salary of Venezuelans kept dropping because of inflation. And the next and current president, Nicolas Maduro, remember the motivator of the cultivators, who was elected in April 2013, not that easily, amidst the recount fuss by the opposition candidate, basically worsened the pre-existing condition by continuing to blast businesses for, quote, waging economic war and choosing to rule by decree.
President Nicolas Maduro is now one of the most powerful leaders in Latin America. The Enabling Act was passed by Parliament, allowing Hugo Chavez's successor to pass stringent new laws without consulting Congress. President Maduro has already jailed 100 shopkeepers for charging too much. Now he can force them to reduce their prices and take control of businesses viewed as corrupt.
Do you think the problem is resolved by giving more power to ones who already have power? No, here the problem is lack of capabilities.
The country won the honor of one of the worst places to do business in, junk territory, and the worst managed economy. Inflation went from 61% in the beginning to an all-time high of 800% at the end of last year. The currency depreciated so fast, it should be called Trinidad James. Of course, Maduro's approval rating plunged under 20% by November last year as the military authority grew bigger and the people started resisting with multiple protests over a 3-year period, which led to the controversially cancelled referendum process to recall Maduro and subsequently the most recent constitutional crisis.
Political differences are growing increasingly violent. Julio Borges, a member of the opposition, was assaulted on his way to parliament.
The government's more radical opponents believe this will be the start of something much bigger.
Here, you can see, Venezuelan people, we are united in the streets and clear where we're going. We are going to have a transition to democracy in Venezuela this year.
At the end of March, the Supreme Court ruled to emasculate the Asamblea Nacional, the country's lawmaking body, which has been run by the Mesa de la Unidad Democrática for a long time. Following massive criticism from the outside, the court reversed the ruling on the first day of last month, and the assembly kept its powers for the moment. But at the same time, Maduro was given new powers to do certain major business projects without the assembly's approval. So he's like Laura, because the rule of law is fucked up like Logan. Donald Trump always says he inherited a mess. But in Venezuela, they're drowning in a snowballing mess. In the words of the Organization of American States, a self-inflicted coup is ruining the democracy at the root, and the people are physically feeling the pain. It brings back the old questions. can the government's control of the market still really improve people's living or living standards? Will the examples like North Korea and Venezuela be the final evidences for our time, or is Michael Moore still Jesus? What could the so-called first world learn from all this in the middle of the recent re-rise of socialism and far-right populism at the same time? I have no fucking idea. Thank you for watching. God bless you. Y Dios bendiga a Venezuela. Amigo.